you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Iron Within, brothers! Oh man, this video has been a long time coming, hasn't it? I think I started this back in 2021, was it 4 years? 4 years in the making and it's finally done. Yeah, so what's this video about? So this is my army blog diary episode where I talk about building an Iron Warriors Leviathan. So back in 2021, I think it was August 2021, a friend of mine sent me for my birthday a whole bunch of resin 3D printed bits for my Iron Warriors. There was all sorts in there: Terminator bodies, heads, some full 3D printed Legionaries, and one of the things included was an entire Leviathan Dreadnought for 30k. It came with all the weapon options. It came with pretty much everything you'd need to make it straight out of the box. And I'll be honest with you, this was my first real attempt at building a resin 3D printed kit. And some of the stuff I remember saying to my friend at the time, it sounds a bit daft in hindsight, but it's stuff like, you know, there are no mold lines with 3D printed kits. I mean, you get layer lines, sure, but there's no like clear injection, parts because, well, these aren't injection molded. But because this is a 3D printed model, there's also a lot of other little quirks that you soon sort of figure out as you try and put the bits together. For a start, they don't typically come with instructions, so you don't really know if you're missing a bit until the last second, which is what happened back in 2021. So I'm putting this thing together and I'm going, right, well, I've got the legs and the body and the head and the arms and everything I need, but I'm missing something to connect to the shoulder. So I go on the now defunct Forge World website, and it's that little grey bit that you see under that green shoulder. That little grey connector, I mean, you can see me scrabbling and looking for it now, but for whatever reason, it was not printed and included with the rest of the kit. And don't get me wrong, I searched through the package in vain. I looked for all the bits that I'd washed and cleaned and dried, and for the life of me, I could not find those shoulder connectors, which left me in a bit of an interesting pickle. Do I just stop the project now and wait until they arrive, or do I just carry on? Well, not wanting to waste time, I carried on. Other quirks with 3D printing: 100% the fact that it's resin that you're sanding or cutting. The dust that comes off that is highly toxic. So as you can see, I'm wearing a face mask and I'm sanding the surfaces because I want them to be smooth, or to try and remove as much of the layer print lines as possible. Remember, this was 4 years ago. The 3D printers were a little different, and I'm brushing that into a bin. But again, this is a bit of the sort of give and take of 3D printing technology. If you're the one manufacturing it at home, you know from the 3D files how this all goes together. If you just get it in a box, you have to kind of guess and look at reference photos of the actual resin 3D models that Games Workshop make and go, I guess this goes here. But there are other little interesting things too. Like, you see a lot of models that are just a single solid giant piece that people 3D print. It doesn't have to be like that. There are some incredibly talented people online, and they can model these things to actually assemble like a model kit. So in the case here, I had the option. I could, swap that helmet out and put like a little dude's face in there, or a skull, or anything. But I chose not to do that because I just wanted to assemble it as best I could. And I'm kind of glad that I did, because when you see this thing fully assembled, yeah, the Leviathan kit is a big chunky boy, isn't it? It's not a small kit. Those shoulder pauldrons on any other model would just be preposterous. But here, they kind of work. But as you can see, I'm just using super glue. It's nothing fancy, just the cheap stuff that you can buy. And being resin, this stuff bonds super quick and super strong. And yeah, it's pretty much a dream. Now, there were other bits, as it turned out, missing from the kit. The under shoulder, I guess, sort of armpit weapons that go on the Leviathan. I mean, the guy had printed me off these assault cannons, these Iliastus pattern assault cannons, but I'm playing Iron Warriors, not Imperial Fists. We don't use assault cannons like that. The actual upgrades for a Leviathan, it's the was it the Heavy Flamer or the dual Volkite? I don't think it's the Culverin, but that's what I use here. And to get away with a Heavy Flamer, as you can see, I use the one straight from a Cataphracti box that I had left over. So why not? It's the same weapon, it does the same thing, it's immediately identifiable, so yeah. But with any project like this where you're straying off of the sort of chosen path, as it were, there's going to be a lot of finagling and trimming and trying to make bits fit that fundamentally don't want to work together. And that's okay. This is a reason why you don't just glue it all together and then stumble at the finishing line. You do it in bits. As you can see, I've only got one of the shoulder pauldrons glued on there, or chest guards, whatever you want to call it. Another quirk, as I've said many a time when it comes to resin 3D printing, is this stuff is brittle. It is. I mean, I know you get ABS-like plastic resins out there now, which you can cut with a knife, and it's like a model kit. But as you'll see here, this stuff shatters like glass when it cracks, and it's just fragments and shards that come away from it. And it's one of those things you have to go slow and steady and treat it gently like you would a woman, and before you know it, you got the bit and it fits, and you're going on to the next step. Well, all right, tell a lie, it doesn't fit first time. You have to trim bits down, and you have to work out, and you have to make it fit the space. This is model making, when you're customizing something. And if anything, I'm kind of glad that I didn't just go with some of the stock weapons that were included with it, because it just wouldn't be as unique as something that you customize yourself. I mean, that Culverin Volkite weapon there, that's from a like a retro Mark 1 Terminator kit that I assembled that was all 3D printed. Just a leftover from that, which helps add all of a sudden a bit more character to this build. And sometimes it's a case of trimming carefully, and sometimes, like this, it's realizing that you can't cut a straight line to save your life. But before you know it, it's all coming together, and it looks good. But don't get me wrong, this video isn't just going to be me assembling a Leviathan. You've seen the beginning, you've seen that I've finished painting this thing, so we've got a bit of ground to cover, haven't we? But that's the body sorted. I'm not going to show you me assembling the legs. You know how legs work. One of the things I'll always encourage people to do is don't shy away. With these big, heavy, chunky robots, don't shy away from adding a bit of movement, bending the knees, making them look like they're walking or running or climbing something. And if you're ever gluing 3D printed resin onto a base, yeah, they're not exactly the flat, perfect sort of feet that you would get with a Games Workshop kit. So, as you can see here, using a bit of bicarbonate of soda, just reinforce the hold. And that's the thing. It would, without those shoulder connectors, this project's dead in the water. I mean, we all know now that there's actually a plastic Leviathan kit that you can get, which, funnily enough, has the shoulder connectors. And I can't really stress this enough. If you don't have all the bits to finish a project like this, you ain't finishing it. So it took about a year, but I got them in the end. It was actually for my following birthday, August 2022. That's when they finally arrived. And, slap some guns on there, some hands, and before you know it, you're ready to go. And this is where it kind of languished for a bit, because as you guys will remember when I very first talked last year about getting into Horus Heresy, I just wasn't ready to paint it. Right then. So next we've got all the assembled but unpainted things, right? So we've got 2 rhinos, both Mars and Deimos pattern. We've got a Legion Basilisk, which, yes, is just a regular Imperial Guard Basilisk. It'll be tarted up to look like one, right? Just bear with me. Leviathan Dreadnought, 3D printed model, didn't have enough bits for all sorts of different things. Like, I was waiting on the shoulder connectors for what felt like a lifetime. I think it took a year for my friend to finally 3D print those and send those. But converting things like a heavy flamer to go on one side and the Volkite Culverin on the other, I think it's the Culverin, it's the business at the end of the day, and it was a free gift, so why not? But I would. And I would convert it a bit more, as you guys saw from my Mark V video, how I sort of do that riveted armor style. I figured it just needed a bit more flair. If it's got some mismatching guns, it could do with some improvised armor as well. And before you know it, you sit down, you give it a coat of brown paint. If you're ever in doubt about a model, if you're feeling a bit intimidated, spray it brown. All of a sudden, you've got something to work up from. And just getting that silver on there, all of a sudden you don't have to worry about ruining it. You can just focus on, right, what bits need to be black, which bits need to be gold, which bits am I going to put the hazard stripes on. And I've gone for a fairly traditional paint job here. It's nothing too exciting. You know, I've gone for the hazard stripes on the giant shoulder pauldrons just because, yeah, that's the thing to do with Leviathans, isn't it? Look how menacing that looks. Oh, I absolutely love it. There's something so ferocious about Leviathan dreads. Aren't the sarcophaguses? Aren't the guys stuck inside them? I know they're dead already, but aren't they being like burnt alive by radiation or something? Like they're meant to be weapons of last resort, but then again, that's the heresy for you. And it wasn't just the Leviathan I finished painting. I finally finished my Contemptor dreadnoughts from that same video. This is the official Games Workshop plastic kit, assembled straight out of the box. No additions, except on the base, where, of course, step on the Imperial Fists. Step on the Banana Boys. Oh, dear. I love the idea of having, again, that sense of motion, but also reach out and touch someone. He's got a heavy flamer in his Gravis Power Fist, which I'll show you at the end. It's a bit hard to see in the lighting, but it is in there. And then there's finally this sad potato of a boy, the almost entirely 3D printed Contemptor Dreadnought. That's the reason why he's got mismatching leg, because yes, the curse struck again, and I only had one leg sent to me. So although I got both feet, and everything else, the one thing that was missing was a second leg. So I just improvised with some plasticard, why not? The hands are stock GW Contemptor hands, same as the Havoc launcher on top. But there you go, there's my little bad boy squad. Oh, what can I say? It's incredibly satisfying painting these chunky boys. And I'm not going to lie, taking my army list from 2,000 points up to 3,000 points, easiest way to do that, throw in some dreadnoughts, because they hoover up, they suck up those points so quick. But at the same time, as we all know, that dread fear is a thing, and they are damn good. I'm looking forward to fielding them on the table. Here you can see just a bit of the under detail of those armpit weapons. What do you guys call them? What do you call them? The chest-mounted weapons, where they're sort of below his arms, aren't they? So armpit weapons. And then finally the old 3D printed Contemptor. And it's important when you're building these things to get a sense of ownership. I like to have lots of scattered dead Imperial Fists on the bases. I like to feel the tears of the Imperial Fist players as they're being stomped under the merciless tread of my dreadnoughts. But it also gives you that little feeling of, yeah, this is unique to my guy. I've made that. I've converted those Mark III armor bits into that. I've added a second suffering dread. He was just made out of spare bits. The spare front panel, spare head, bit of plasticard at the back to give the suggestion that there's more dreadnought buried under the rubble. Oh, what a gang, what a team. As always, boys and girls, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a like, a comment and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next update. Iron Without!